When Solume was first getting started, I was doing whatever it took to earn the attention of a real lead. And I mean, I did a lot to earn the attention of them or earn the favor of them. I had a board member come in as a lead, and they were brand new to the role, had never lived in an HOA in his life. He'd retired and moved into a condo association and somehow ended up as the treasurer. No experience, just a guy who I guess wanted to do his community right or something. So he recognized pretty quickly that his community needed help with their financial future, specifically their reserves and their reserve study and kind of planning and stuff like that. So we started talking, and then we kept talking hours per week for weeks. I know, like anybody who knows business would probably advise me that that's not a smart idea, but we went through the reserve study together. We identified components that looked like they were grossly underestimated. We talked through what questions he needed to ask and what to flag and how to think about the numbers. And at some point he gave me a verbal commitment that the community was going to sign with Solume. Apparently they had talked about it as a board and they were moving forward. And I'll be honest, that's why I kept pouring into it. And that's, at least what I told myself. And at some point over the holidays, I was actually going to be in the city that this community was in. So I just said, hey, let me swing by and take a look at the property. And we walked the route of his community together. And anything that really stood out, we'd talk about. And, he showed me the areas that he was most concerned about. We talked about how Solume could support them. And I had to remind him probably more than once that I am not a reserve study specialist. I'm not licensed to assess the physical condition of anything. So I stayed in my lane, and he was fine with that. He kind of understood, that there were some boundaries there that I couldn't really cross. So eventually they signed the contract. They became our first customer. I felt great about it, and it kind of justified the amount of time that I spent really trying to earn their attention, like I said, or earn their respect, earn their, I don't know what I was trying to earn. But then at some point, payment was due. Crickets. No money, no email back, no text response, nothing. I called him, I texted him. I had even considered sending a carrier pigeon thinking maybe he'd given up on modern communication systems. I'm not kidding. I reached out to him many, many times, and he just completely went silent on me. And it was not like him. This guy was, he was very responsive. We were on the phone frequently throughout the week. And so I kind of started to develop this slow sinking that somehow he had kind of gotten what he needed and kind of suckered me for it. And I felt like, shoot, did I really just spend weeks, several months of my time trying to build this relationship to try to convince them that Solume was what they needed for their community. And yeah, it was, it kind of left this hole in my stomach of like, shoot, did I just really work that hard for nothing? And I started to think, was I really gonna chase him down for, sue him for an $800 contract? I'd already poured weeks into this job, months into it, and is it really worth my time to try to chase him down to try to get a couple $100 out of him? Weeks went by, nothing, no response, and I told myself that I had just been suckered, that somehow he'd gotten everything he needed out of me and walked, and that I just made a rookie sales mistake. All right, so hold on there. I'm gonna come back to that and finish that story in a few minutes because there's a reason I'm telling it to you. But first, I wanna talk about why situations like this even happen and what it says about the kind of boards we work with every day. My name is Joe Braun, and I'm the founder of Solume, an all-in-one HOA and condo association management platform built for self-managed communities. Well, really, any community uses it, and we do have some that are not self-managed, but a lot of them are self-managed. Quick thing, and I want to be upfront, just like I was with this board member, Solume is not a property management company. I'm not a property manager. There are things that licensed property managers do in their particular states that we legally can't do and we won't pretend to. But we do have licensed property managers on our team. They inform how we build the platform and how we advise communities we work with. So while I won't give legally binding, direction to your specific situation or what state you're in, We can absolutely help you operate like you know what you're doing because we have a team of people that kind of advise us in these situations. But here's what I've found. Most boards, unfortunately, have no idea what they're doing. They don't really have a strong grasp on what's going on in their community. I mean, that's most boards, not you. I mean, if you're watching our videos, I suspect you have a pretty good idea of what's going on. So I'm not talking about you, but most boards don't really have a strong idea of what they're doing. And not because they're, incompetent people, but because there's no training manual for them to go through. They're new at it, and so they're, kind of failing forward. Many boards that I've talked to have a lot of the same questions. Kind of these reoccurring things keep coming up. How do we document a violation correctly so it doesn't come back to bite us? Or what counts as real evidence? How long do we have to respond to an architectural request? What's really in our reserve fund right now, and is it enough if we compare it against what we're going to need in the future? Do we even have a complete inventory of the assets that we're financially responsible for, which really blew my mind. Like, there are communities that really have no idea what they are financially obligated to keep up with. And I've sat on Zoom calls where board members are kind of, in a friendly way, but bickering back and forth about, like, are we responsible for that? No, that's the city that takes care of that. Or like, no, we need to take care of this. These people are just kind of bickering back and forth about things, and nobody knows. No record of when the roof was last replaced, no log of the HVAC system that serves the common areas. No idea of what any of it's going to cost to replace or repair it when it's needed. And this isn't just some abstract number like the government is missing trillions of unaccounted for money, right? This is real homeowners' money, real people's real dollars collected from residents who elected this board to be responsible with it. And I saw this pattern repeat on nearly every call. Didn't matter if the board had been, together for 6 months or 6 years. The same kind of gasps and questions and looks and concerns. So we made a decision early on. We were going to be advisors first and software second. Now, let me explain what that means, because we are a software company. That's the lane we have to stay in. But so much of our time is spent really advising boards, not just how to use the product, because that's easy onboarding stuff, but what are some directions that they should be going on or going in, and what are some priorities that they should be focusing on, because this seems to be the biggest problem that you face currently. It's why most of our videos aren't just product demos. They're really education around these topics: reserve studies, HOA best practices, violation enforcement, state laws and their implication for everyday management, the stuff that actually matters to the people running these communities. Because a board that understands the problem can use our tool pretty easily. Like, that's a no-brainer. But a board that has no grasp on what they should be doing, even the best tools in the world aren't going to solve their problems. Okay, so back to the story that I was telling you. So at this point, I'd written the community off. Weeks of silence. I made, peace with it. I kind of came to terms with the fact that I'd been suckered. And then out of nowhere, I get an email from a name that I don't recognize. It's a new board member, someone I'd never met, never spoken to, and she introduced herself and then told me what happened. My contact hadn't been taking advantage of me. He died. Like, straight up dead. Just a routine procedure, and he's gone. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of felt a little terrible, because I'd spent the last few weeks harboring kind of frustration towards this guy, thinking that he had scammed me, that he'd used my time and walked, and he was just gone. Like, no other explanation. And I was actually down for a few days after that, which surprised me a little, because this was someone I'd only ever met once, but had talked to over the phone and Zoom quite a bit. But somewhere in those weeks of conversations, walking through the reserve study components and talking about the community, meeting with him over the holidays to walk the property with him, somewhere in all of that, this guy had become something, that I'd say is close to a friend. And he apparently was beloved in that community. The board members who knew him personally I mean, they were shaken. This wasn't just a person that sat on the HOA board to them. This was a true friend. And now I'm in an awkward spot because he had signed the contract and payment had never come through. And now I had to figure out, how to have that conversation with the board that was grieving without sounding like that I was shaking them down for some money. So I gave it time. I didn't push. I worked with the new board member and brought her up to speed on everything that we had done together and kind of started the onboarding process again. But this time they had paid and we got the community set up the right way. Now, why do I tell this story? Because it illustrates something that I think gets lost in a lot of software demos. We don't just hand you a login and walk away. We get invested. We learn your community. We spend time with you before you ever paid us a single dollar, which admittedly isn't the best business practice. And when something goes sideways and, as you've been on your board, you know that something always goes sideways, we navigate it like people, not like a vendor protecting a contract. So I'm going to share one more thing, and I'm not going to name anyone here because, that's not the point, but another completely separate community, a board member of this community told me that she had been using another platform. It was a good product, they had great demos. She felt good going into it. But once she was a paying customer and started asking whether a feature could be adapted for her community's specific situation, the answer she got was essentially, listen, this is how it works, take it or leave it. Admittedly, her contract was small. She knew it and she felt like they knew it, and so she left. She gave up on them and she eventually came to us. And I'm not telling you that Solume is perfect. No software is, but I can tell you that we will never make you feel like your community isn't worth our time. Because here's how we actually think about it. The 108 home HOA or the 24 unit building today might refer us to 3 communities next year. But even more important than that, there are real people living in those communities, real homeowners who deserve a board who knows what's going on. And if we can help that board get there, that really is the job that we try our best to fulfill. And that's what we built Solume to do. So yes, we are a software company and we kind of have to stay in that lane, but we also advise as best as we can while still staying in our lane. If you're a board member watching this, whether you're brand new to the role or you've been doing this for years and you're just getting tired of feeling like you're, trying to figure this out on your own, here's what I want you to do. You don't have to have it all figured out. Most boards don't. And don't think of that as a failure. At least not yet. Maybe eventually you can consider that, but at this point, don't consider it a failure. That's just where a lot of communities start. So the question worth asking yourself is whether the way you're operating right now is actually moving your community forward. The tools you have, the processes you do or don't have, the information that you can actually get your hands on when you need it, is any of it working? If the honest answer is yes, then great, keep going. Like you don't need, somebody's outside help to do that. But if the answer is no, or even I'm not sure, I think we could probably dial things in a little bit, that's worth 15 minutes of your time. Book a quick discovery call. The link is in the description. It's not a pitch, I promise. We'll look at where your community is and ask a few questions and tell you honestly whether or not we think Solume makes sense for your situation. If it doesn't, we're going to tell you that. We'll be honest. We'll talk. We'll listen to what you have to say. And, if you have questions, you can ask that of us. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. See you in the next video.